Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders, the Authority Positioning Coach. Today we have with us Scott Miller, who's the author of Marketing Mess to Brand Success. Scott, welcome to the program.
Hello, Mike. Thank you for the spotlight today.
Hey, you're welcome, and I'm excited to talk to you because I am all things marketing, so I just really enjoy talking about this topic, and I love the clarity of your title, Marketing Mess to Brand Success. So give us a little background of yourself and then what led you then to write this book.
Well, so I served as the Chief Marketing Officer for the FranklinCovey company for the last decade, of which I've been a 25-year associate of that leadership development firm, of course, founded by the famous Dr. Stephen R. Covey of the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People fame. Before that, I worked for the Disney company, originally from Central Florida. Spent my entire career in sales and marketing, was a sales vice president, was the executive vice president of business development. And about 3 years ago, I decided to write my first book called Management Mess to Leadership Success. So it's kind of mess to success theme, where as professionals, we all have messes, so why not just own them, own up to them, and teach through them? Nobody wants to be taught through your successes. They want to learn about what not to do, right, and what were your challenges. So I think we learn more from our messes than our successes. That book did so well that I republished a new book called Marketing Mess to Brand Success. This draws on my decade as a chief marketing officer in a global public company. Again, a lot of mistakes, some wins, but really talking about the conflict between sales and marketing, branding, and really understanding what is the role of marketing in any organization. And I have more Mess to Success books coming out in the coming years, but right now I'm elated that you're featuring Marketing Mess to Brand Success.
Yeah, it's interesting. You mentioned, it's always great to learn from your marketing mess. It is great to learn from that, but I feel like it takes effort. Just because you had a mess or you notice or read case studies or learn about other people's messes, that doesn't mean it translates into you going, aha, here's how I can implement it the right way. So I think the more and more we're exposed to, here was the mess, here's what they did, and then now here's the success, then it becomes, second nature. But I really feel like it's the similar to the old saying, knowledge is power, which is a fallacy because, as you would agree, knowledge is potential power. You got to do something with it. So I really love that juxtaposition of mess to success.
I think you're right. Thank you for the acknowledgement of that. I think it takes vulnerability. It takes humility. Yeah. One of the things that Dr. Covey said in our firm was humble leaders are more concerned with what is right than being right. Yeah. And I think it's the same for marketers, right? You're more concerned about what is right for your customer, what is right for your organization's brand, what is right for the growth of the organization, not just you, your income, and your career. It does take a level of self-awareness and vulnerability to acknowledge your messes, identify how you can turn them into successes. Like I said, to teach others about their mess. As a leader, when you own your mess, you make it safe for others that work with or for you to own their mess as well. It doesn't mean you license bad behavior or you wallow in your mistakes. You just have the humility and the vulnerability to say, we screwed this up. Let's kind of do a post-mortem on this and figure out what happened and learn from it and talk about it freely and openly.
Yeah. Yeah, couldn't agree more. And probably from the players or actors in the situation, they would prefer you to own it, because if someone gets defensive and is like, well, it worked because, you have to remember that, and you start making excuses, backpedaling, now all of a sudden people don't appreciate that attitude. But you know what? This kind of was messy, could have been better. Here's what I learned from, and if you're reporting this back to your board or your superiors or your colleagues, I think that people really admire that authenticity. Now, that doesn't mean you can mess up and own it every other week, because now it's like, okay, come on, let's stop messing up.
Right.
Hey, so I mentioned right before we started recording that yours is one of the only books I've ever read that were sent to me ahead of an interview. You know, most of the time it's like, hey, here's my PDF of my book that I just wrote. We'll talk about on the interview. And yours came in the mail, so that was wonderful. But I literally read it cover to cover, and I've got underlines all throughout it. So it's just a really well-written book. Thank you for your work there. One of the things that I wanted to get your comment on, and this is on page 18, I was always introduced as the Chief Marketing Officer, but I always operated through the lens of Executive Vice President of Business Development. I didn't really want to own marketing. Instead, I wanted to own business development as the outcome of marketing. And I think that is a huge aha for people in marketing. Talk to us a little bit about that mindset.
Yeah, the book is called Marketing Mess to Brand Success, 30 Challenges to Build Your Organization's Brand and Your Own. And so when I was promoted to become the Chief Marketing Officer, which was, a named executive officer in a public company, a fairly important role in terms of, the SEC watching you and you're legally liable for decisions inside of a public company. It's a daunting role, at least it was for me. I asked the CEO, could I also have the title of Executive Vice President of Business Development? By the way, I as a very nature of being an officer in a public company, you are an Executive Vice President. But I wanted to have the team that I led, that grew to about 35 people, be seen as not just in brand and brand equity. I think a lot of marketers get caught up in these marketing terms. Well, the fact of the matter is I'd come from a 15-year sales background. Sales, like frontline salesperson, commission, quarterly revenue goals, monthly revenue goals. And I realized that you cannot staple brand equity to the back of a bank deposit slip. And I mean that to be kind of funny and sobering, because I think so many marketers get caught up in brand and brand equity, which are very important things. I mean, don't let me discount them. But at the end of the day, marketing needs to be seen as developing business, revenue, profitable revenue, that you actually are driving cash in the bank. That is the lifeblood of every business. You can't fund payroll with brand equity. Now, perhaps eventually you can. Of course, Procter & Gamble, right, is funding payroll with brand equity, but most people don't have brand equity like a Procter & Gamble. Business development is the role of marketing, to create a brand, to create the positioning, the communication, the perception that your product will do this, and then deliver on it, but do it in a way where you're very close to the cash. Meaning, in fact, one of the challenges in the book, challenge 3, is stay close to the cash, meaning successful marketers are right there with sales in their boat, rowing with them, metaphorically. Not rowing against them, not competing against them, not pointing the fingers. I think the biggest cancer in every organization, next to gossip, is the conflict that comes between sales and marketing, pointing the finger at each other. And as a marketing leader, I generally think that sales should probably report to marketing. Or if you have two independent, mature leaders and they can work well together, that's fine if they're peers. But the role of marketing really is business development, and I think it's vital that everybody, whether you are a frontline product manager, whether you're a channel leader, whether you're a brand director, whether you're the chief marketing officer, your job is to make sure all of your efforts are developing business, building revenue streams that are profitable. Too often marketers get canned or fired because they get so disconnected from their role around business development. And I wanted to kind of ring that bell to say, if you want to build a marketing career that is valued, then you will kind of, quote, stay close to the cash and be seen as the leader of business development as much as you're seen as the leader of marketing.
I think that one of the elements that is indicative of what you just said is the mindset of, oh, yeah, marketing. We bring awareness to the product and sales, closes the deal. But it's the mindset of business development. And it made me think of one of my clients that I consult for. I do content marketing, authority positioning, and I work with all the teams in the company. And they have something really unique. Every single week, the whole company gets together for a live or a virtual meeting, and everyone goes around and reports on what they've been doing. Here's what's going on. Well, the interesting thing is the sales manager has started, with now 2021, here's, the sales goals. And rather than calling them sales goals, we need to achieve X, as a goal, he calls it, and last week we submitted this many proposals and we had this many wins, but we're still X dollars below budget. And the CEO really perked up and really commented on that to him, because it is really a budget, because to meet the overall budget, you have to hit X number of dollars in total sales. Well, if you get down to the day-to-day, week-to-week, and you're, striving after certain numbers to meet budget, it really does relate to the overall budget of the company, as opposed to, oh, hey, it's January 1, my goal this year is to lose X number of pounds. Oops, didn't make that goal. And I think that in your mind, sometimes you don't feel really bad about missing a goal, but if you missed budget, now that might give some higher import. Do you find that sometimes the wording and the mindset really does help to set the tone?
Well, of course, right? What a great insight you just shared. I mean, our mindsets control everything we do, right? How we think, what we say, what we do, the results we achieved. All of us have deeply enculturated belief systems and paradigms. And the same in marketing, right? A lot of marketers think, well, no, sales owns that. Our job is to, launch the product. Our job is to place the ads. Our job is to build the social presence and how many clicks and how many likes. I don't care how many clicks or likes or shares you have. What I care is what you said is how many deals do we close? And was it profitable revenue? And was it deposited in the bank? Now, I don't want to be seen as, obsessed with the financial measures. I spent my entire career helping to build a global brand and to deliver to customers, promised outcomes. But to your point, Mike, the words you use are enormously valuable. In fact, I used to tell the marketing team, to the annoyance of some of the members, sales funds our salaries. We don't fund our salaries. Sales funds our salaries. And so we need to make sure, again, we are in their boat rowing with them, that we're there every point of the way to make sure that we own the goals as much as they do. In fact, I mentioned in the book, I think my tenure as the chief marketing officer, which was double the national average, probably less correlated to my marketing skills and more correlated to how the CEO and board of directors perceived me as being and owning in sales, owning the sales goals as much as the EVP of sales. That is probably what led to my doubling the national tenure, was the perception, the mindset that I developed in the CEO that I owned the, quote, number, the revenue goal, the profit, just as much as the leader of sales.
Yeah, and it's that sales and marketing integration. It needs to be integrated. Yeah. Sales should not operate in a vacuum aside from marketing, and vice versa. And
Mike,
you were
quick interruption. To that point, it isn't. It's that integration isn't just right in systems. It isn't just in words. It's in culture, right?
Yeah.
It's in do the sales and marketing leader trust each other? Do they work together? Do they occasionally take a back seat to each other because it's the right thing to do for the organization? At the end of the day, the leader of sales and the leader of marketing, if they're two people, if they don't have mutual respect for each other and trust, then you're going to have two teams that are misaligned and working against each other, which is every founder, every owner, every CEO's worst nightmare.
And I think that if you're a strong marketing leader or a strong sales leader, that integration could be really tough. And I'll set the stage for my next question from page 71 of your book, where you're talking about Liz Weiserman's book, Multipliers. And you said that she writes that as a leader of people, our job is not to be the genius in the room, but to be the genius maker of others. So maybe that mindset shift right there will help a marketer or a marketing leader really integrate well with the sales leader, because if marketing is helping the sales team look like a genius and the sales team is helping the marketing team look like the genius, everybody wins, right? Kind of like the old Zig Ziglar quote, if you help someone get what they want in life, you're going to ultimately end up getting what you want.
Such a great insight. This book you mentioned, Multipliers, I think it's the best leadership book ever written, and I've been in the leadership space for 30 years. The author is Liz Wiseman. She basically teaches the concept that no one wants to work for the smartest person in the room. No one wants to work for the know-it-all, the most creative person in the room. Your job as a leader, your job as a colleague, heck, your job as a parent is not to be the genius in the room, but rather the genius maker of others. Do you have the maturity, the humility, the vulnerability, the confidence to not always have all the answers, be the most creative, suck all the energy out of the room? Do you have the confidence to step back and let your team solve the problem without you? Do you have the maturity to not necessarily rush in and always save the day? In Liz's book, she identifies what she calls 9 accidental diminishing tendencies. And isn't you're either a multiplier or you're a diminisher. As marketing leaders, as sales leaders, as friends, spouses, and parents, we're both diminishing accidentally and multiplying people. And as a marketer, the first diminishing tendency is, she calls it the idea fountain, the person who's always spouting off creative ideas and bigger and better ideas. And when you are the idea fountain, where nobody else can get a positioning idea or a branding idea or a launch idea in because you're the expert, you build a culture where people don't want to stay. Remember, people don't quit jobs. They quit bad bosses and corrupt cultures. So whether you are a first-time leader, a frontline leader, or someday you hope to be a leader of people, recognize your job is not to save the day. Your job is to achieve results with and through other people by building capability and capacity and multiplying, igniting their genius, not you being the genius in the meeting, in the room, in the company.
And I feel like strong leaders in marketing, strong leaders in sales might hear that, nod their head and go, ooh, that's a good one. I'm going to underline and highlight that one. That's great. But it's hard to really internally trust that is the case until you finally take the leap and do it and go, oh, that's pretty good. Kind of like, Chet Holmes, the ultimate sales machine, the whole concept of don't sell and tell. How about teach and educate, be that advocate and draw people in and have them make the buying decision? Because like Jeffrey Gitomer says, people love to buy, but they don't want to be sold and pushed. And we know that. Or Bob Berg that writes in his book, The Go-Giver, give value, serve and give and serve, and then it'll come back to you. And too many times sales or marketing, they want to go, 1 + 1 = 2. I did this marketing campaign, sales closed the deals, and we celebrated. Well, sometimes it's not that easy. So talk a little bit about where you are working with clients or where people might be hearing this going, that all sounds fine and good, but I'm stuck in my ways. I feel like I just need to plow ahead. But you really do need to be that genius maker. And when that happens, the light does shift off of you, but in a good way. It's not excluding you. It's kind of like that subconscious, Scott did a great job building that team. And wow, look at how the team is growing. It doesn't mean who cares about Scott. It means Scott's done a great job, and now let's look at the accolades of his team.
Well, first of all, your listeners and students are fortunate to have you as their mentor, because you're quoting and integrating some of the world's finest authors and content into this conversation. So I want to call you out in a positive way for the value you're giving your students and listeners. It's remarkable to hear you talk about, Jeffrey Gitomer and Bo Berg, two of my heroes in the space. So thank you for that. Secondly, a leader's job is to recruit and retain quality talent. I mean, this requires a mindset shift. Your job is not to rush in and save the day, to have all the ideas and solve the problems. Your job is to build a culture, to create conditions where genius people want to thrive and work and stay. And that takes a level of maturity to kind of move beyond yourself. Now, you could argue that you could, work your way out of a job if the leadership believes, well, why do we have Mike? Everybody else is doing all the work. Of course, that would be a short-sighted leader in a poorly organized culture. But I think after 30 years in the leadership development industry, it is safe to say that leaders are the linchpin of every team. Your job is to model the types of behaviors you want to see in your people, from things as simple as not gossiping and being punctual and sharing credit and turning the spotlight onto other people, giving people physical and psychological space to think through problems and struggle. Struggle is where the learning is. Every leader will tell you that if you want to grow someone's skills, you don't solve the problem for them. You ask big questions. You make them think broader in terms of their immediate comfort level. Great leaders are the ones that get very deliberate on the mindsets, the skill sets, and the behaviors that they want to see in their team members, and they model them very deliberately. This is why not everyone should be a leader. I think that is a misnomer that a lot of leadership experts talk about. Well, everyone is a leader of people. I don't agree with that. Everyone should not be a leader of people. There are some people who should be independent contributors. Too often we promote the top individual, channel marketer now to be the director of marketing, when the skills that may have made you a great channel marketer are not the skills that make you a great people leader. So be really thoughtful about how you build your career, not at the expense of others, but you build it in concert with developing a culture where you lift others up and everybody's focused on a common objective. Your job, of course, is to articulate a vision and a mission, align systems, create a strategy where people can be part of a winning team doing important work that they feel valued through. That's really the role of a leader, whether you're a sales leader, a marketing leader, or an operations leader. It takes a balance, right? There are times when you're going to want to be the star and you want to be recognized, and you should be. Just because you're the chief marketing officer doesn't mean that you shouldn't, receive and deserve some credit as well. But I think the older we get, the more mature we are, the more we realize our job is to, again, I'll say it, achieve results with and through other people. And that requires you probably to be as much of a relationship expert as you are a marketing expert.
What a perfect spot to just drop the mic and end it, because that was just a great, great final thought. So, Scott, what's the best way that listeners can reach out, connect with you, pick up a copy of this book, Marketing Mess to Brand Success?
Again, Mike, thank you for your abundance and the platform. Honored to be joining you today. My best site probably is scottjeffreymiller.com. All of my blog and LinkedIn articles are there. I'm privileged to host what is the world's largest weekly leadership podcast called On Leadership with Scott Miller. All those episodes are there as well. My next book coming out in 2022 will be Job Mess to Career Success. There will be probably 8 or 9 more Mess to Success books coming out in the coming years. So again, thank you for your abundance mentality and shining the spotlight on my work today. I'm grateful to you.
Thank you, Scott. I really appreciate your time as well.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneursradio.com.